Let's get ready to story! All right. Jimmy Breslin, where are you?
Right here.
Yeah, I know where you are. Jimmy Breslin, do you know what Jimmy Breslin Wikipedia page I'm about to read?
Yes.
Okay, I have a feeling because there's a famous Jimmy Breslin. If somebody was going to ask me about a Conor McGuigan that's out there, which there's two, it's me or that punk-ass kid from Georgia who always has a sideways hat and like some duck-faced girl next to him. It's me and that kid. We're the only two Conor McGuigans going. But Jimmy Breslin, that's more like that sounds like, you could have like an insurance firm somewhere. Jimmy Breslin, life insurance. But Jimmy Breslin, you may not know it from looking at him, was born October 17th, 1930. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning American journalist and author. Good for you, sir. He currently writes a column for the New York Daily News, my God. The Sunday edition. He has written numerous novels and columns of his have appeared regularly in various newspapers in his hometown of New York City. He served as a regular columnist for the Long Island New York newspaper Newsday until his retirement on November 20. You're retired, sir? My God, good for you. 2004, though he still publishes occasional pieces for the paper. By the way, you should really look at his bio because he has done a lot of StorySlam business. Give it up for Jim Breslin, everybody!
Well, the funny thing is, when I was a kid, people knew who Jimmy Breslin was, and they would always come up to me and say, "Oh, Jimmy Breslin, is your dad Jimmy Breslin?" And I was like, "Yeah." But of course, my dad was the Jimmy Breslin that owned a gas station in Delaware County. But as far as I knew, my dad was Jimmy Breslin. But when I was a kid, I had a lot of dreams. When I was 8 years old, I dreamed that I was going to grow up to be Batman, right? As you get older, you start understanding your dreams become less extravagant. By the time I was 10, I thought, all right, I'm not going to be Batman, I understood that. But I thought I'd be a police officer. My friend Benjamin, when I told him this, he said, "Why do you want to be a police officer?" And I said, "Because I can shoot the bad guys." And he responded, "But they're going to shoot back." And I was like, oh shit, I hadn't thought of that. So I scrapped that idea. So then I wanted to be a baseball player, but I didn't even make the all-star team when I was 11, so I knew that was out. So in the summer of when I was 11, I started going from wild dreams to like simple goals. So I remember being at my next door neighbor's house, the Crothers. Mr. and Mrs. Crothers were like surrogate grandparents for me. And I would go over, Mr. Crothers would fix my bike. We'd watch the Phillies game. We'd watch the Phillies play all the time. So I was over at Mr. Crothers one time, and the Phillies game was on, and the announcers were talking about Wrigley Field. And they were talking about the majesty of Wrigley Field. And I remember sitting there watching this, and they were talking about the ivy-covered walls and the manual scoreboard and how there were no lights at the field at the time. And I said, someday I'm going to get myself to Wrigley Field. And I closed my eyes and I willed it. And I figured, I'm going to be around for the next 60 years or something. So by the time I'm Mr. Crothers' age, I'm going to get there. But I promised myself I would go. Okay. So that was 11 years old. A lot happened after that. A couple years later, baseball, the MLB player strike and all that stuff. I was 17, started getting into music and reading, and sports was not as important. I was too busy at the bars with friends and, going to Kutztown University and having a blast. But eventually I got married and had 2 boys of my own. So that pulls you right back into baseball. And my 2 boys, I would coach Little League. And when my boys were 10 and 11, we had this thing going on where I would go ski for a week in the winter with my friends. And then in the summer, my wife would take a week vacation with her mother, and I would take a week off from work. And me and the boys might go to the beach, do some day things. And we'd try to go to some baseball games. So this one summer, 2003, I say to my kids and I are going to take this one specific week and do stuff. There's no ball games on the East Coast. And we're looking, Phillies aren't in town, Orioles aren't in town. New York, there was like nothing going on. So we started looking, maybe we could do a couple road trips. And the only road trip we could figure to watch a couple games was this pattern for 5 days. On Monday, we would drive to Pittsburgh and see the Pirates play. On Tuesday, we would go to Toledo and watch the Mud Hens play. Wednesday, we would drive to Chicago, see the Phillies play the Cubs in a night game. And then Thursday, Phillies Cubs in a day game. Then Friday, drive to Cleveland and see the Indians play at Jacobs Field. And I'm like, oh my God, it's like all the stars have aligned, you know? And I'm like, we're gonna do it. So, you know, I go online, book the cheapest hotels I can, buy the tickets, you know, the Cubs tickets for Wrigley aren't cheap. And so we go. So Wednesday morning, we get up in Toledo and we start heading through South Bend. And it's a beautiful day out. The sky is as blue as I've ever seen it. And we're driving through, as we're driving through South Bend around lunchtime, I'm like, well, let's pull in here and have lunch. And we pull in and there's Notre Dame's campus. And I had no plan on stopping. You know, I hadn't even thought we'd be driving. I don't know. I hadn't realized we'd be driving by Notre Dame. So we pull in and we go cruising around the campus and we park right by Touchdown Jesus. And get out and I'm telling the boys and showing them. And we had just seen Rudy over the winter. You know, Rudy, the classic, that classic film where the little guy Rudy got to play with Notre Dame. That was his dream and it came true in the last game of the season. And so we're standing there at the gate looking down the ramp into the Notre Dame football field. And some guy comes walking by and he goes, oh, hi, how you doing? He goes, where are you from? And we said, we're from outside Philadelphia. He goes, so am I went to Villanova. And he goes, do you guys want to come in? Right? And so he comes and unlocks the gate and lets me and my two sons in, and we go walking down the path just like Rudy, you know, and on right to the edge of the field. And he goes to my two boys, and I have the video camera with me the whole week, and he goes to the two boys, you know, go ahead, you can step in the end zone. And they step in the end zone. The turf is so beautiful. This is in July, so nobody's played on it, you know, in months. The sky is so beautiful. The stadium is just massive, and it was just spine tingling to be in there. And so after like 10 seconds on the turf, he goes, that's enough, get off. And you know, and he gets them off, and you know, we thank him profusely. And within a couple hours, we're there in Chicago, check into our hotel, and we go walking, you know, as soon as the gates open, we want to be in there. And we go, you know, walking down, and we come out right behind home plate, and as we emerge, Frank Sinatra is playing on loudspeakers. And the Phillies are in the field practicing. And there's like a golden glow on the stadium, on the scoreboard and the ivy, and it just hits me. And that this goal I had set when I was 11, and it hits me and it overwhelms me. And I'm holding the camcorder, my two kids on either side, and I had this like flash, like I was a kid their age with this dream, and now here I am next to my two kids, and I break out sobbing, right? And my kids are so embarrassed, right? Because it's not a tear from my eye. I am chest heaving, sobbing, right? And it's like, there's no crying in baseball. Come on, you know, but I am like full, like, whoa! And that moment of, like, you know, finally capturing a dream where I had no idea when I made that promise to myself when I was a little kid. I thought it'd be sometime in that interim, and it'd be sometime in the 60 years. But the idea that I walked in there and it hit me that I'm standing between my two sons who are my age, and I felt like a kid myself. And I'm not a religious man, but my guess is if there's heaven, that's what it would be like. That's my story. Thanks.